Welcome to Doctrine and Devotion, the podcast exploring Christian faith and practice from a Reformed Baptist perspective. My name is Joe Thorne. I'm the lead pastor of Redeemer Fellowship in St. Charles, Illinois.
And I'm Krista McDunn, here for Jimmy Fowler.
Yes, she's in the house. She's in the house. Listen, Jimmy's getting nervous that she's going to replace him. And all y'all, I know y'all want Krista on. But
he's got to quit going places.
Yeah, maybe stop traveling so much. He's in England right now or something, Leeds or something.
I don't know
where he's at. He's doing something over there. He sent me some pictures, though. He had to quarantine. It was like a whole thing.
That's a bummer.
Yeah. Hey, it's the holidays.
It is.
Yeah, hey.
Eggnog.
Cheers. We're having
Cheers
eggnog.
Cheers to you.
Ooh, it's pretty good. Okay, so...
the simultaneous... Oh, I probably shouldn't say that because that's someone else's copyrighted podcast thing.
Oh, what did they say?
The simultaneous sip. Have you ever...
No, I haven't heard that. Who is that?
Scott Adams. Have
Who's
you ever
that?
heard? The Dilbert guy, the guy who did Dilbert.
Oh, yeah.
He does his coffee thing, and it's like the simultaneous sip, and he's like, and he slurps it.
I don't listen to nerd podcasts. I'm sorry, Krista. I'm too cool for that stuff. So I know that you're a fan of AC/DC. One of the greatest rock bands. You know where I'm going with this, I think.
Yes,
okay, so I know you're a fan of AC/DC. Because you should. One of the greatest American rock bands of all time. They are still amazing. How much of a fan are you of AC/BC?
A little bit less.
A little bit less?
Yeah, slightly
What
less.
is AC/BC?
You know what? I don't even know what it stands for. American... Association of Certified Biblical Counselors. I had to think.
Okay,
Yeah.
are you sure about that?
I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure.
So
I'd have to look it up to be totally sure.
Okay, because I did look it up and then I forgot.
I want to say American, but it's an association.
Yeah, that's probably right.
It is.
Right.
It's not American. It's an association.
Association of
Certified Biblical.
Certified Biblical. Yeah. All right, cool. Mm-hmm. So, do you know any? Do you have any friends that are biblical counselors?
I do. Yes, I do. I know people who are pursuing that, or who are that, or who really agree with that. Yes.
And are you opposed to biblical counseling?
No.
No, but there are different versions of everything, right?
Yes.
There are bad versions. There are bad licensed professional counselors.
Absolutely.
There are bad versions of biblical counselors.
There's weird accountants. There's not good teachers. There's doctors you'd never recommend.
So what?
All of the above.
So we follow a guy, and some of our listeners might follow him. His name is David Evan Hughes. He put up a tweet that we both saw. We didn't talk about it until we got together here to record. And he put up a tweet that said, "I knew it was coming eventually. The AC/BC crowd, not the band, the counselors.
B, not D.
Yeah. They wrote a piece discrediting neuroscience." And then he said, when your whole case for biblical counseling is discrediting fields of science and mental health care, eventually you will make yourself look like a clown emoji. And I like David. David is a smart guy. He's a Christian counselor. He's a trauma therapist. He likes the Grateful Dead. So that is a major strike against him. Listen, David, the Grateful Dead are horrible. It's a horrible band with terrible music. And all the fans smell. But he does play bass, and I think he's at Southeastern. I can't remember what seminary he's at. But anyway, David, love you and appreciate you. You saw that as well.
I did.
So did you read the article yet?
I did. I looked at it. Yeah, I did. I didn't get a chance to read the whole thing.
What sense did you get from it?
Well, they liked neuroscience. It seemed like in the sense that it helps neurosurgeons not take too much out of your brain
tissue.
If they're removing a tumor and things like that. But it was purely like medical. And the sense I was getting was that they didn't like it if we got into the behavioral manifestations of issues, and
as if the way that the physical brain works doesn't impact emotions and actions and all that. Okay.
Right. And it's really interesting because I remember as an undergrad, I had a professor who his thing was neuroscience.
Okay.
And it was one of my favorite classes. And I actually called my mom and said, this is where it's at with psych, because it bridges the gap between the physical, what's going on physically, and what's going on emotionally. Because you talk about the biochemistry, the neurotransmitters, or tumors, things like that. Yeah. It could be medically related. So to me, it was fascinating. And we, as an undergrad, we even did experiments injecting neurotransmitters into the brains. This is so gross, but into the brains of rats.
Yeah.
And then we'd observe their behavior. And it immediately, like, they just started doing it.
Wow.
Whatever it was. And so it was really interesting. And so neuroscience is pretty cool.
So is this
cool.
how do you liken like things like neuroscience to like Johnny Mnemonic? You know Johnny Mnemonic?
Yeah.
You know the movie?
No,
What?
I didn't see it.
Oh my God.
Sorry.
How do you not? It's Keanu Reeves, man. It's a Keanu
I
Reeves
didn't
movie.
See it. I'm lame when it comes to movies. I got to be honest.
1995, Keanu Reeves.
Didn't
He's a
see
data
it.
courier, carries a data in his head, like a little
I didn't see
little
it.
action. Dolph Lundgren's in it.
Okay, now I have to watch it.
Okay, don't watch it. It's terrible.
See, I know
no,
how
you
to
don't wanna- you don't
discern
wanna
good
see
from
that.
bad, Joe.
You don't want to see that. So, like you guys know, Krista. If you don't know who Krista McDonough is, she is a licensed professional counselor. Am I getting that right?
Yeah.
LPC,
Yes.
licensed professional counselor.
Yes.
So you don't even know. You're the wrong
You know
person.
what? I do. I get confused because my
it
next
professional?
one.
I'd say, is it
yeah,
PL?
no, it's LPC.
Okay.
No, because it's confusing because my next one is going to be LCPC, licensed clinical professional counselor. So maybe my brain is on the next one.
Okay, and then if you get your act together, you'll be ACBC.
Maybe
So
they probably wouldn't have me.
No. I think they would tie you to a chair and dunk you in water to see if you float. Some of you guys know what that means. All you church history buffs know. All right, so she is a licensed professional counselor, a member at Redeemer. She is one of the conference organizer for Doctrine and Devotion, and she is a friend. So we always love having Krista on. But I wanted to talk today. I wanted us to discuss this whole idea of counseling. Pastors wind up doing a fair bit of counseling, and I think that's a good thing. I think there's a proper way to think about that and talk about that. But what I generally say to people is to help them understand is that I'm a discipler, not a counselor. I know Jimmy says the same thing. And that doesn't mean that we don't counsel people. It doesn't mean that we don't listen and offer counsel and offer advice. But what we're trying to say is that we are not professional counselors. We are going to go to the Word. We are going to direct you to Scripture, to doctrine, to theology. We're going to pray with you. We're going to love you. We're going to serve you. But there are many situations where pastors are not equipped to deal with all or many of the issues that people are struggling with. There are many issues that are going to require intensive, ongoing care for their souls, for their minds, for their bodies, or whatever. And when they need hopefully when they need financial help, you direct them to somebody, because most pastors are not exactly financial gurus. If they need help, with their bodies, you refer them to a doctor or to somebody that can help them in their particular things, with their particular needs. But then there are mental health issues. And so whereas I can spend a certain amount of time with people for an extended period of time, long form, I can't really do that. There's too many people I'm trying to minister to in very specific ways through the ministry of the Word. And then on top of that, there are situations that are beyond my capabilities. What do pastors and churches need to be thinking about when it comes to when is it time to refer somebody to a professional counselor, whether you want to send them to ACBC or a Christian counselor or a licensed professional, whatever. But how do you know when you need to refer somebody? That's
a really good question. I don't know that there's a magical answer.
Well, great. It's going to be a boring podcast then.
It is not.
You need a magical answer to make it exciting.
Nope. It's going to be good. No, I think, well, first of all, if you feel like you're in over your head, that might be a good
Probably
place to
are
start.
Over your head.
I mean, shoot, I feel like that sometimes, and I'm an LPC. So, yeah, that would be a good indicator. But here's the thing. I think, first of all, not that you need my permission. I'm just me. But I think pastors, you don't need to be everything to everyone. Paul
said, I become all things to all people.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, see that?
Okay.
You just lost that debate.
Whatever. He wasn't talking about this. Anyway.
He wasn't.
But anyway, no, I would think that would be freeing, for pastors to hear that. Like, no one expects you to be that to
We're
everyone.
supposed to be specialists in the ministry of the word.
Right.
Not mental health.
Right.
I
And
can't
that's
be a specialist in
okay.
that. Yeah.
That's okay. Here's why. I think maybe we could talk about that too, is why it's important. So imagine you have a couple that comes in. They're having trouble in their marriage. They come and they sit in your office, and the wife says something to the effect like, he drinks too much, he's not engaged with the kids, things like that. So the temptation, I think, is to focus on that most apparent thing, that somebody's drinking too much and they're getting drunk and they're not engaged. So you're focusing on the sin, quote unquote, that's being manifested.
Let's stop the drinking.
Right.
Yeah.
And you want to address that. That's great. That's ultimately the goal, is to stop the drinking, but we need to know what's behind the drinking.
Mm-hmm. There's a reason this person's drinking that much.
Exactly. Nobody really just sets out and says, you know what, today I think I'm going to become an alcoholic.
Right.
Or, oh shoot, I had one too many drinks and now I'm over the threshold and now I'm an alcoholic. It generally doesn't work like that. It's usually people are trying to cover up pain that they don't know how to deal with. And so there can be a lot of reasons. So in that circumstance, there could be trauma or abuse in that person's background. They could have bipolar disorder.
Right.
And they don't know how to deal with the depression and the mania, and they self-medicate with alcohol. There's so many things that could be going on.
Right.
That, and as a counselor who's actually trained, I'm not knowing what that is in my first session with people. It takes a while to figure that stuff out. Of course, pastors aren't going to know, so to kind of let yourselves, in a sense, off the hook of having to know all this stuff or be aware of all this stuff, I think is important.
Yeah.
I think if you feel like you're in over your head, or if you, and again, you may not know that in the first time you meet with somebody. But as you go through subsequent meetings and you're realizing like, okay, I'm out of my depth, that's probably a good indication,
That's helpful.
Yeah.
Because I know that, I think that a lot of people, I'm telling you to get on your mic a little bit more.
Sorry.
There you go.
Hello. I'm not a professional like Joe is.
I'm not a professional either.
Yeah, you are.
I read the book, Brothers, We're Not Professionals. So,
so you are.
Yes, we're not professionals. And never mind, I was going to say something mean. I think there is, in most of us, there's a sense in which like, I want to be able to help. There's the good sense, I want to help. Mm-hmm. And then there's the bad sense, I want to have all the answers. I want to be the savior.
Right.
I want to be the hero that heals.
Right.
And that's wrong.
Yeah, that's
right?
not good.
But pastors fall into both those. Any good pastor wants to help, and you don't want to be useless. And you believe that the gospel is the most important thing. And so when you find that somebody, and we've all, listen, man, as a pastor, I've been a pastor since 98. I've been a senior or solo pastor at a church. So it's like I've had a lot of opportunities to deal with people that are going through issues that are significant, life-altering, life and death, marriage destroying, soul crippling, all these things. Mm-hmm. And I've been in situations where it's really apparent I can't solve this problem. This is going to take a community, right? But it's also going to take some specialists that can actually walk them through this. And I think that what a lot of guys struggle with is like, well, okay, then what's my role? What am I supposed to do? Like a lot of ministers, like, well, if I thought I was supposed to be able to counsel people. Like, well, you are, but you got to know what your specialty is. Mm-hmm. My specialty is helping people to see Jesus. My specialty is helping people to understand the Word of God and apply it to their life. So that's my specialty. And if this person that's in your church or in your life is struggling with a serious problem, then you have a role. You have a vital role to play. But then so do the family has a role to play.
Absolutely.
A counselor has a role to play. And I've said it before, man, if I have and I've dealt with people that have had serious eating disorders earlier in my life. And okay, so I can help them in one aspect of their life, right? In particular, but they need help that I can't give them.
Right.
And they need somebody that's actually, been to school, been educated, and has an understanding of this beyond my expertise.
Well, they may need even medical help.
Right.
So that's beyond my scope.
Right.
Too, so it's
the doctors.
You need a team of people. Yeah.
And then that's not bad. Like that's actually good.
Well, and what you said, that you want to be helpful, sometimes the most helpful thing you can do is refer them out.
Yeah. Listen, if you can refer somebody to a counselor that will help them, they will love you for referring them
for
to
sure.
the person. They will love you for that.
Absolutely.
They might love their counselor more, but still, they will still love you.
They will. And, and the same is true. Like I always say this too, from the counseling perspective. So even though I'm a Christian and I'm a counselor, if someone was sitting in my office and, we're talking about whatever their issues are, but spiritual things come up, I mean, I can talk to that a bit. We can explore some of those things. But if I sense that somebody is really in a spiritual crisis or they're struggling with a particular doctrine, let's say, or something like that,
right.
I am not going to necessarily try to tackle that because I want to stay in my lane. And I would be referring back to you or back to their church. Go talk
right.
to your pastor, because that, even though I have familiarity with it, I'm not an expert in it. I didn't go to school for that. I'm not trained in that. So the flip side is true as well. I don't necessarily want to.
So how do you know? I'm actually wondering about this. How do you know when you need to refer somebody? I asked that question before, but maybe we can put maybe a couple of things out there for people. What are a few ways? Hey, you know what? This is something that they need ongoing help with. And one of the simple things that comes to my mind is if they're going to need continued ongoing support, then that's going to be beyond me.
Absolutely.
Because I have. My role is not as counselor, and I can't be a full-time counselor to everybody in the church.
Right.
So if it's going to require more than, some people say 3, some people say 5, whatever it is, if it's going to require a long-term visits, you're likely going to need to refer them to somebody, to whether that's a professional counselor, maybe it could just be another discipler in your church, depending on what the issue is.
Sure.
But when to refer is, that's one thing that comes to my mind is when it's going to take ongoing, weekly, care that you're just not going to be able to meet. What else comes to mind?
One thing to think about too that, would be our diagnostic criteria. So we talk about issues reaching a clinical level of significance is when you see people where it's affecting their ability to live their lives, whether they're finding it difficult to go to work, they're isolating, they're not enjoying activities that they once enjoyed. Maybe they're not coming to church, and so some of those things are criteria that you're seeing. So if somebody's telling you like, yeah, I'm feeling kind of down or I'm feeling anxious, and you can tell, and you can ask a few questions like, how have you been doing? Are you still, are you engaged with your community group? Let's say if they're in a small group and they're not, and that could be how it kind of comes on your radar. Maybe your small group leaders are sharing some of this, like, hey, we're concerned about this person, that type of thing. So yeah, if you're seeing a real change kind of in how they're living or now how they're not living.
Because there's a difference, right? Like there's a difference between somebody like, oh, they had a really bad night and they came home and they slammed the door and they yelled the F word. And you ask like, well, what's going on? And it's never happened before. It doesn't happen again. It's like, all right. Or somebody winds up, they're at a party and they wind up drinking a little too much. And it's never happened before. It's like,
right.
Okay, there's not a chronic problem here. You just kind of talk about it. You work it out. But so this would mean that there's something a bit more going on than
Absolutely.
Just a one-off sort of experience. But how do you okay, so I wind up talking to a lot of people. I know you do as well. And there's transitioning somebody to see a counselor. It can be
awkward.
Really awkward, problematic. Some people are just weird about it. I think a lot of people are most people resistant to it? I don't know. I think I would be.
I think that's
I would
fair to
naturally
say.
not. I was like, I would naturally not want to.
Yeah.
I would naturally not want to. Thankfully, I know you and I know David Summers, a Christian counselor here at the church as well.
Yep.
I know counselors that I respect and feel like I could trust. But I know myself to know, boy, I would be hesitant.
It's hard. So
how do you do that? If somebody does need to transition to see a counselor, how do you help them see that this is important? Because I can tell you, even in the last year, I know of people that need to go to counseling and they're like, nope, not going to happen. Not going to do it.
And you can't make them.
Well, I could.
Well,
I don't know. I feel like I could.
All right.
Jimmy and a couple of big boys at church.
You could make them go, but that doesn't mean they're going to participate.
I still win.
They're, well,
because they're there.
But you dump them in my office, and then I have to fight with them.
I don't want to
No,
deal with
I'm
it.
just kidding. No, so people, there's stages of change that people go through, and yeah, everybody moves through that at their own pace. But as a pastor, you have to have your own healthy boundaries, in a sense, because sometimes there are people that are like, no, I just want to meet with you. And you're like, I can't do it. I got to prepare my sermon. I don't, there's just like what you're talking about. There's not enough hours in the week, right? And so I think you can say to them like, hey, I've met with you now 3 times or how many ever times. And I'm realizing I think what you're dealing with is beyond kind of my scope or my ability to help you. And so I would like to get you in touch with someone that I think that could help you.
I can do that. That's easy. Like,
Yeah.
I'm good at communicating with people like what my limitations are. I don't struggle there. How do you persuade somebody to go? Because like they're like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to go. Krista's the worst. I don't want to go see her. Whatever.
Then you say, okay, you don't have to go see Krista. Let's find someone else.
You think Krista's bad? You try ACBC. Could be way worse, bro.
No, that's actually a really good.
So what are some things, like what do you say to people? Because I know you have to probably, just in church life over the years, I'm sure you've had the opportunity to tell people, hey, you probably need to go talk to somebody.
Yeah, it's true. People can be resistant. I guess it depends on what's going on and what level of things. I can imagine where if it's bad enough, it might rise to a level of church discip So that's kind of one extreme.
I wasn't even thinking about that.
Yeah, but it could come to that depending on what it is.
Right.
So you could go there. But that's not going to be, if someone's anxious.
But for the record, I didn't think about it. But counseling has been involved as a part of church discipline at Redeemer. Like when somebody comes in just for certain things, like, hey, part of the process here is you can go talk to somebody.
Right.
So that makes sense.
And and I think that's a good thing, depending, again, the situation. Mm-hmm. But if someone comes in and they're like, I am so anxious, you're not going to put them under church discipline necessarily for that. It doesn't fit. I guess maybe what's helpful is to talk about some of the objections a lot of people raise and what you might say. So a lot of people might say, why would I want to go talk to a complete stranger about this stuff? That seems so weird. And I'll just call that out right away, even when I'm first meeting with people that have never been in counseling before. And I'll address that and just say, I know this probably seems weird. And I appreciate that you even came and congratulate you for taking that step, because I know it's not easy to show up at my office. But the reason why seeing a stranger, that's why counseling works, to be honest with you, because first of all, you've probably talked to other people about it already, your friends. They maybe have given you advice, and either you haven't taken it or it's not good advice.
Right.
And so you've already kind of talked to the people that you know, and that hasn't helped, So you've probably tried that, struck out. But seeing someone who otherwise is not emotionally involved, isn't in any way invested in it, other than they care about people and it's their job and they're trained to do it, that's when you can really unload. When people come in my office and they don't know me otherwise, they feel free to say just about anything because they know I'm not going to say anything. I can't. I'm bound by confidentiality. Yeah. So it's, unless they're potentially going to be a danger to themselves or someone else, I'm not saying it to anybody. So they're free to just get it off their chest, and there's something so powerful about that. So I think reminding someone of that and even saying like, me, I'm your pastor. There's things that you won't even feel comfortable telling me most likely because we're afraid that we're going to get judged. And I get that. So go see someone that isn't going to judge you.
Yeah. No, I get that. There was a story I saw a while back about a guy who was hitchhiking. And he started sharing his experiences. And one of the most common experiences was he would get in the car, and right before they dropped him off where he needed to get dropped off, they would confess to him things that they had never told anybody.
Wow.
They would just come clean about horrible things or secret things. And he never betrayed anybody's confidence, but he just talked about like, these are the kinds of things that people would tell me because they knew they would never see me again. There was a sense of which like, I'm a stranger. So like there was a little bit more freedom in talking to them.
Right.
I do think that there's something to that like, if you go to a professional counselor that you don't know, like you might, and I think you will feel more free in talking to them than
absolutely,
in Steve or or Susie at your church that, that you see at every church picnic.
Exactly.
It's a little hard to come clean
different,
with
right?
them.
And even, if I do see someone from church, I'll even say that, like, let's make sure, are you cool with this?
Right.
And
you've counseled people from our church, and
I have.
We've had other counselors over the years. The Brentforders, they were
I miss
awesome.
them. Yeah.
Church really took a nosedive when they left.
Hi, Krista and Nick.
Yeah, they ain't listening. Get out of here. But no, like, so I know, like, our people are not afraid, or some of our people are not afraid to see counselors who are members of our church. They're
right.
And then others, I'm sure, are like, heck no, I would never do that.
Right.
That's fine.
Right. I think another thing too is some people are just like, they think counseling is weird. They just think it's weird. And even Christians think it's like, wait, that's wacky. You're going to climb up in my head and, all that kind of stuff. And are you going to hypnotize me? Or, what kind of weird stuff are you going to do? And the answer is none of that. I listen.
Yeah.
I don't do hocus pocus I don't know how to do that stuff.
Right.
I remember being in college and people would be like, what's your major? And I'd be like, psych. Oh, are you analyzing me right now? And I'd be like, no, but you just showed me that you're kind of a dork.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah.
No
it was
need to
just,
analyze that.
It was like, is that some weird pickup line or something? Anyway. But yeah, no, that's not what it's about. And that's another thing, I guess I would say too, for Christians, is to kind of allow yourself to get over that fear. The same way you might have to get over the fear of going to a doctor because you're a little concerned about what you might find out is wrong. Like, what is that pain I'm feeling in my side? Yeah, you feel uneasy because you're a little bit nervous about what you might find out, but you're sick of hurting. You're tired of hurting. So you go and you face that fear a little bit and you find out, like, oh, it's indigestion, or
so so in a sense you're saying, like, listen, you might need to point out, here are the possible consequences of not going. Right.
And aren't you sick and tired of feeling sick and tired?
Yeah. You're gonna this doesn't get better on its own. Right. It's like, these things can lead to other problems, and there are people that can't actually help you. They have a track record. There are people that, like, I love referring to counselors that I know and trust.
Absolutely.
Because I've seen them help people. I've actually seen them help people. And I've told people that I have told people in our church whom I have referred to counselors that I know, like, I would trust them. I could talk to them. Like, that's how good I think they are. Like, I would be comfortable talking to them.
Right.
So I think that's helpful. Yeah. If you can help them to see, like, that this is a normal need and there are consequences for not dealing with it. Just like if you had a physical doctor, if your liver wasn't working right,
absolutely,
you go see a specialist.
Absolutely.
So that's good. Yeah.
I think too that, getting over the idea of, like, well, shouldn't I just be able to pray more or read my Bible more or something like that? I mean, there's sometimes people put that on people who are suffering.
Yeah.
Wrongly, in my opinion. But then there might be people that think that, like, can't I just do more or try harder to get out of this? And it's like, no. I mean, I always use, I have a nephew who's diabetic, and he was diagnosed at age 5. He did not do anything to make his pancreas stop producing insulin. Yeah. It's not a character defect. I would never look at him and go, you know what, if you just tried a little harder, I bet you could get your pancreas to make a little more insulin. No, it's a medical issue, right? There may be medical issues going on, and I don't mean a tumor on the brain, but if neurotransmitters, chemical imbalances, right? We've talked about that before. And so go check that out. Here's the other thing that you could maybe share with people who are reluctant is that just go once and see how it is.
Yeah.
You don't.
That's good.
There's no rule, and I tell people that it's informed consent, that they can end treatment at any time. I can't force them to come back. They're not obligated to see me.
That's real. I didn't think about that. That's good. Yeah.
So you can go and try it, and if you don't like that person, then let's try another person.
Right.
And I'll even be upfront about that. I know I'm not good. Like, I'm not going to click with everybody. I've had clients say, I'm going to look for someone else.
Yeah.
One person said, you seem like you'd be really fun to hang out with and go get a drink with, but I don't know that I want to be, I was like, okay, and it's like, I wasn't offended.
Okay,
it's like, fine.
For the record, I'm just going to say, like, you are fun to hang out with, but I would not have a problem talking to you as a counselor.
Well, thank you.
I'm trying to think, like, who would I'd have to come up with what kind of person, I couldn't talk to somebody who doesn't give any sort of, like, nonverbal responses. Like I need somebody to kind of like nod or something like they're with me.
Oh my gosh, I'm a bobblehead.
Yeah, I need something, a little raised eyebrow, a little or a little, if they're Japanese, hey, something so that I know that they're tracking with me. Otherwise I feel like I'm talking to the air.
Yeah, no, that's true. Thanks for saying that, because sometimes I think I do that too much. So
yeah, well,
maybe
probably
I need to tone it down.
Your party friend probably was like,
yeah, I don't know what that was about, but anyway, I do know what it was about, but I won't talk about it. Anyway, so here's another thing I'll throw out though.
Yeah.
That I think sometimes, and maybe pastors feel this way, is they're a little leery of referring to counselors because they don't know where they're at spiritually.
Oh, sure.
Or maybe they don't want to refer to somebody that doesn't like even talk about spirituality.
Right.
And I would say, I'm going to say something kind of controversial.
Okay, say it. Do your thing.
Don't necessarily be afraid of that.
Yeah.
I mean, do your homework. And that was one thing we can talk about, like, how do you build a network of people? How do you find people to refer? But one thing I would say is don't necessarily let that stop you from referring. And you brought up eating disorders, and I'll give you an example. So when I was in treatment, I've dealt with an eating disorder personally. So I was at a Christian counseling center. That was where I was receiving treatment. It was like a day hospital program, but they wanted me to see a dietitian. So they referred me out to a dietitian that they worked with. I have no clue what her spiritual situation was. I have no idea. Didn't care, because that wasn't why I was seeing her. She's a dietitian.
You didn't need the Ezekiel diet?
No. Or
Daniel,
anybody else. I don't know. No, I needed somebody who was familiar with eating disorders and who would call me out on my own garbage that I was trying to do. And I've actually referred to her since. She went on to become a therapist.
Oh, wow.
So now she's like the double whammy. She's so awesome. I still don't know where she's at spiritually. And you know what? I don't care. I wouldn't hesitate to refer people to her because of her specialty and the type of work she does. And when I think back to myself at that point, I didn't need her spiritual knowledge. I had other people for that.
You had that covered. Yeah.
I had that covered. So that's one way to think of it too, is like, we're creating a team of people that can help this person. You as a pastor are one of them. You've got the spiritual basis covered. Now, that doesn't mean you just willy-nilly send somebody to anyone, because, there can be whack job people out there that are doing crazy stuff. So you do need to be smart and do your homework. Both in the Christian
world and in the secular world.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it goes both ways.
Absolutely. But yeah, I think sometimes people are like, oh, they're secular, that's bad. Not necessarily. Yeah. Do you make sure every medical doctor you see is a born-again Christian?
I do.
I would argue people don't.
That's why I don't see any.
That's why you don't see any. No, I remember, my husband had to have open heart surgery a number of years ago. He needed a valve repaired. I never even thought to wonder about that guy's faith because I wanted the expert in the heart valve arena.
I actually agree with you, but I know how people think. They're like, yeah, but we're not talking about a physical heart. We're talking about the soul and the mind, and they have. They've heard like bad examples of psychology that excuses sin and evil, or from the Christian worldview, and so they get a little tripped up in that.
And I agree.
Which is why you're saying like this is why you've got to know who you are referring to,
right?
And maybe we'll have to have you back on so we can talk about like building a network of people to refer to, because I think that could be a helpful conversation as well.
Well, and here's the other thing too that I'll say really quick. Yeah. We're fortunate where we live in this area. We're right next door to Wheaton College. There are a ton of Christian counseling practices in this area, and so we would never have a problem referring people out. There's parts of the country, especially if you're in kind of rural areas, there may be one person.
Sure.
So you don't have that luxury. So if you've got somebody in your office that is dealing, let's say, with an eating disorder or bipolar disorder potentially, or something like that, I guess you could, hey, if you're willing to drive 45 minutes, there's this Christian counselor, but they may not be willing or able to do that.
Yeah, most people aren't going to want to drive 45
minutes.
And
so you may have to kind of work with what you have.
Sure.
But that's where I would suggest then, keep track of that person, meet with them regularly, not necessarily weekly, but often enough that you can be like, hey, where are you at spiritually? How is this going? And you can follow up with them then. And you don't have to feel like you're throwing them to the wolves potentially.
My understanding is that good professional counselors who are non-Christian, who are atheistic respect the beliefs of other people and don't actually interfere in those things.
They're supposed to.
Yeah. So I'm sure there are, but if they're actually professional, I mean, like, I don't mean they have the degree. I mean, they are truly a professional in that sense. Like, that means they hold to the values and they know how to, they know what their role is.
Ethically speaking, yes.
They're supposed to.
They do. And I mean, I have clients that are faithful people in my office, but not Christians. And I have to respect their beliefs. Mm-hmm. And I'll even say, like, well, in your faith tradition, what do you believe about this? And things like that. And we'll talk about it. And because ethically, that's what I have to do. So yeah, absolutely. If a counselor is hostile to your faith, get out.
Yeah.
I have no problem saying that. But generally speaking, you could bring them up on an ethical violation if they were hostile to your faith. I mean, that's just the bottom line. You could, you could report them.
Go get them.
So
have you, okay. We're going to have you back on and you got to tell us all the great stories of the craziest clients you've ever had. And that won't be a violation, right?
You want me to lose my job?
No, that would be a violation.
Is that what you want?
I can't do that.
How are you going to refer to me if you get me fired?
You don't have to mention who it was, Steve McCoy.
I've never seen Steve McCoy in my office.
Why are you winking?
I didn't wink.
She's just winking right now. You did it again.
I did not wink.
I've never seen Steve McCoy. She's like, wink. She's like, I don't counsel him.
I don't.
Okay. All right. Are you winking then?
I'm not winking.
This is what Jimmy does to me. Jimmy does this to me all the time. I can finally do it to somebody else. Well, listen, Krista, thanks for being on. And we really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
And, Jimmy better hurry back. That's all I'm saying.
Come home, Jimmy.
Yeah, we miss you, man. And, hey, guys, if you want to jump in on all of this, let us know what you think. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter @DocAndDevo. You can find us on Facebook, facebook.com/Doctrine and Devotion. And, of course, you can visit our website, doctrineanddevotion.com. And if you like what we do here, you can get more and support the podcast and all that we're doing by subscribing to Doctrine and Devotion All Access. You know where you find that? doctrineanddevotion.com/all access. Go there, read about all the stuff that you get. You get 5 devotions every week via a special podcast, RSS, and you get another podcast called Banter of Truth. All commercial free and only for our all access members. We'd love to hear what you have to think. So jump in on this conversation. Let us know. And David Hughes, we're expecting you to jump in on this one. So let us know what you think too. Later.